It's Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods.
.06 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. It is a Tuesday, and I'm glad you made it to the second day. And the first day of spring, by the way. Now, we all know what that means for Wyoming. The first day of spring is 6 more weeks of wintertime. And the forecast, as you might have heard a little bit of it from Don Day just a moment ago on your local radio station, well, the extended forecast comes up at 6:45. Enjoy this week, because a mix of all sorts of different kinds of weather comes our way at the beginning of next week. And if you're wondering what that means, it depends on where you are and what time of day or night or whatever. It's just going to be a little bit of everything.
Today's show is sponsored by Squid-Flavored Donuts.
Yum.
Bringing the flavor of the ocean to your breakfast pastry.
I'll just leave those there and let everybody else enjoy that. No, you don't need my help. I'm not going to be selfish. You enjoy those, okay? You can have more.
Warning, this show contains reference to guns, liberty, limited government, low taxation, the cult of climate change, free thinking, cigar smoking, short people, rubber chickens, Karen's bureaucracy, liberal buzzwords, tour runs, traffic, toilets, terrible jokes, and more. No apologies will be issued. Guest callers may express any opinion they want without fear of being canceled. Unless you're a loudmouth jerk like Dave, then Glenn will hang up on you. Strap in, hold on to your coffee, and feel free to participate.
This disclaimer does not refer to every person named Dave. Just one particular Dave from San Francisco. We know a lot of Daves. They call this show all the time, and they're great people. So don't call this program and complain that we use your name. That would be a real Dave move, Dave. Okay, first story that I have up for you here comes from it's Cowboy State Daily, but DJ up in Gillette sent me the story, and I had to swear to her it wasn't me. We're going to go to Casper, Wyoming, to the airport out there, right? Some awful smell in the bathroom made them clear the building. Now, hang on. Before you go off out thinking about what that could be, here's the story. A substance on the floor of a restroom, that's gross enough, and a custodian who became sick cleaning it up led to a brief hazmat evacuation of the Casper-Natrona Airport Monday. The airport director, Glenn, no relation, said that a female employee working in the restroom at the airport was cleaning something up on the floor and became very sick shortly after 9 a.m. The employer required an ambulance transport without knowing what was on the floor. They initiated hazmat protocols. Quote, "We thought we had exposure to some substance. Out of abundance of caution, we had to assume the worst. So basically, we shut down the HVAC system, turned off the air conditioner, of the terminal building and evacuated. The regional emergency response team was called to test the substance and found out it was not hazardous, though just exactly what it was still is not known." Well, that's just gross. While the terminal evacuation was short, the incident did impact an incoming flight at the airport, so people probably had to wait on the plane for a little while. Passengers arriving United Airlines flight to Denver were deplaned outside of the terminal so they can get their bags and walk through an outside gate. Oh, okay, they got them out. That's great. By 11:15 a.m., everything was back to normal. That's just weird. Well, I like starting your morning with weird. Then we move on to the next one. I finished the story. Last week, you and I, it was Friday, had a deep intellectual discussion on this program about a phobia that has yet to be named. And I think I might have come up with the name, but I found something else along the way. This is the phobia of going to a real outhouse, whether you're camping, whatever the case is. And most people will lift the lid and look down the hole to make sure that there's nothing down there that will bite them in the bum. like happened in Alaska.
180, this has to be the craziest story we've heard in a while. A woman in Alaska went to use a backcountry outhouse, and well, as she tells it, I got out there and sat down on the toilet, and immediately something bit my butt right as I sat down. Yes, I had to read that. That's bad enough, but this story is just getting started. Lauren Maxwell reports from Alaska.
It's a funny story to share because it's like obviously a little bit personal, but it's such a good story that I'm like, I don't care.
That's what Shannon Stevens says now about a weekend she'll never forget. On Saturday, Shannon was camping with her brother at his yurt near Chilkat Lake in Haines. She made a trip to the outhouse sometime after dinner and discovered she wasn't alone.
Went into the outhouse, sat down on the toilet, and immediately something bit me.
That's right, bit her right on her bottom. Shannon's screams brought her brother running to the outhouse to see what was going on.
I asked, what bit you? And she said, I don't know. And then I asked, well, where is it? And she said, it's down in the hole. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna open the lid and see what's down there. And so I grabbed my headlamp and I opened the lid. And right there is a big bear face just staring back at me, a cinnamon-colored bear face, which I was not expecting to see.
Okay, so the bear face was cinnamon-colored. Oh, okay. So, all right. That got us on that intellectual conversation. I realized there's not a name for the phobia, and it's a legit phobia of going to the outhouse and checking, and even still after checking, being afraid to sit on the hole because you might get bitten in the butt. Now, a lot of people sent words in, and we're trying to invent a word for a phobia, something-a-phobia. A lot of people sent words in that had to do with either poop or outhouses. But see, this is where it gets tricky because specifically it is fear of sitting on the hole because something might bite you. So we're looking for a specific term. Some of the top contenders, Barassophobia, that was Jim and Glen Rock. But what if it's not bear, but it is your bare bottom? Let's see. Poseidon's kissophobia. Okay, that's clever anyway. That was Reefer and Carpenter, Wyoming. Chunk out of buttophobia, my sister from Florida. Portozoophobia, Red and Casper. That's getting really close. The best suggestion was nip-over-holophobia. So that's the one I went ahead and picked. Now, if you don't think that's a good one, I'm always willing to listen to new suggestions. In the meantime, while digging for this, I thought, what do you want to bet? Somebody's written a song about this. Well,
hey, don't linger too long in the outhouse, for there's creatures that live in the hole. Hey, when your work there is done, put your pants up and run. If you want to be saving your soul.
this is great.
If you want to be saving your soul.
There is an entire song about this topic. So if you want to hear the entire song, the story is on the Wake Up Wyoming site. And if you have the Wake Up Wyoming app, which is free to download at your app store, Miss Mary at some point will alert the story out. And you'll be able to click on the song and listen to the entire song. It's almost 5 minutes long. And it gives all sorts of different scenarios about people who went out to the outhouse, sat down, and either were bitten by something or disappeared and were never heard from again. See, this is what I was doing with my morning while you were sleeping. I call this important show research.
So why do you drink coffee every day? You gonna die without it? No, but you might.
Admit it, you were hoping somebody would say that. Want to talk 888-97-WOODS or chat him on the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app. This is AM 1030 K2 Radio. .22 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. It's a Tuesday and first day of spring. All right, 888-97-WOODS, the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. So I'm going to get rid of something. It's so easy to do. I was really debating whether I would bother with this, but why not? Let's get it out of the way. So Donald Trump makes some comments the other day where he's talking about the auto industry, and that includes Mexico and jobs going to Mexico, things like that.
And he calls it a bloodbath if Biden is elected again. Now, of course, and I'll put this in context for you. Of course, the Democrats rush off and talk about bloodbath as, see, Trump is trying to incite violence. He's calling for a bloodbath. No, that's not what happened. That never happened. He didn't do that. Now, it doesn't surprise me. To be fair, both political parties do this to each other. They're constantly taking the other party's words out of context. They do this all the time. I've watched it so many times. Whenever I get a news story, and it doesn't matter if the story is reported by left-wing news media or right-wing news media, I'll always go back to find what exactly happened or what was said in full context. Because each side is always lying about what the other side said. And I can give multiple examples, just to name one. Some time ago, when Rush Limbaugh was still alive, Limbaugh said, when Obama was first elected to office, I hope he fails. He was specifically talking about Obama's stated agenda for the country. And he said, I hope he fails. Well, he was very clear to say that Obama's agenda, he thought, was dangerous for the country, and he didn't want Obama to be able to implement any part of his agenda. So I hope he fails. So you understand the context of that. Of course, that was taken out of context. Limbaugh wants America to fail. That is not what he said, clearly. But Democrats kept pushing that. He said if you want his policies to fail, then you want America to fail. That's not what he said, clearly. All right, so let's see here. Industry insiders agree with former President Donald Trump's suggestion that China is looking to annihilate American auto manufacturing on President Joe Biden's watch. During a speech in Ohio Saturday, Trump warned Chinese President Xi Jinping that if he's reelected in November, China's premier automakers will not be allowed to export their cheap electric vehicles to the United States market without facing massive tariffs. Most recently, reports circulated that China's BYD is planning to build EV plants in Mexico and export the cars to the United States at very low prices, thus drowning American-made competitors in that market. Trump said allowing China to do this would be a bloodbath for the American auto workers. Now that you have that in context, of course, Democrats are screaming, he's calling for violence. That's clearly not what he said. Here's the words that he used. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something to China if you're listening, President Xi Jinping. You and I are friends, but he understands the way I deal. These big monster car manufacturing plants that you're building in Mexico right now, and you think that you're going to get that and you're going to not hire Americans and you're going to sell those cars to us, Trump said. We're going to put a 100% tariff on every single car that comes across that line. And you're not going to be able to sell those cars if I get elected. If I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole. That's not going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the whole country. It's going to be and that's not going to be the least of it. Emphasis added here in the story. And if I can find the exact audio on that, I will as well. But again, clearly, you see what he's talking about. And American automakers agree with this. It's difficult to read Trump's words. He has a very unique style of speaking, and I'm not the only one. I found professional broadcasters, big time, who try to read and quote Trump directly, and his words are kind of all over the place. Yeah, so it's difficult to read the sentence smoothly, but you get the idea what Trump is saying here. All right, so even auto manufacturers agree with this. Let me see. Oh, I might actually have it. Hang on, let's see if I can play this.
And the head of the United Auto Workers never probably shook hands with a Republican before. They're destroying. Mexico has taken over a period of 30 years 34% of the automobile manufacturing business in our country, think of it, went to Mexico. China now is building a couple of massive plants where they're going to build the cars in Mexico and they think that they're going to sell those cars into the United States with no tax at the border. Let me tell you something to China. If you're listening, President Xi, and you and I are friends, but he understands the way I deal, those big monster car manufacturing plants that you're building in Mexico right now, and you think you're going to get that, you're going to not hire Americans, and you're going to sell the cars to us. No, we're going to put a 100% tariff on every single car that comes across the line, and you're not going to be able to sell those cars. If I get elected, now if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole, that's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it. But they're not going to sell those cars. They're building massive factories. A friend of mine.
So you get the idea of what he said. All right, I'm glad I found that little clip there. I was able to play it for you so you heard the whole thing in context. The lesson really, though, is whenever you hear from the opposing party, so-and-so said this, don't believe it. Go find the source in context and then decide for yourself what was really said. But here's another example also of MSNBC and CNN and other organizations like that lying about what somebody said. Let's wake up, Wyoming.
That's cold.
Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods on K2 Radio. Join the conversation at 888-97-WOODS.
Six 36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Okay, I'm going to just talk a little bit more about what I was talking about a moment ago. If you're just joining me, I just decided to dive into the whole Trump bloodbath comment, which when you hear it in context, he was not calling anyone to violence at all. That's not the case. Now, he's in trouble again, but that's Trump's mouth where he's always getting in trouble. When he said out loud, during the course of his speech, that, and I'm paraphrasing here, that Jewish people who vote Democrat hate their country, hate Israel, and hate the religion. And I look at that as, okay, maybe overstated a bit. However, when you take a look at the way the Democrat Party has treated Israel and the Jewish people over decades, it makes you wonder, why does anybody who's Jewish, as a practicing Jew especially, vote Democrat? I wonder the same thing about union people. Used to always vote Democrat because Democrats support unions. But then Democrats started shutting down the very industries that these unions operated. Now, for example, the coal industry, to name one, to name many others. And I wondered why, hey, you union people, why do you keep voting Democrat when the Democrats are trying to shut down the very companies that you work for? You've got to rethink this thing. Also, let's take a state like Tennessee. Tennessee has not only been very heavy into coal mining, but they're very conservative, backcountry kind of folks with traditional values. Okay, I mean, you're talking church-going people with very traditional values, and they work in industries like coal and manufacturing. And they always vote Democrat because, well, that's been a tradition for generations. I've talked with people in that part of the country many times. I have friends up there who will say, well, I vote Democrat because my daddy did, my daddy's daddy did, his daddy did. Well, okay, but the Democrats are out to destroy your way of life. They hate your conservative values. They hate the industries that you work for. Why do you vote for them? So I think the way Trump said it was poorly worded. But the idea of it, yeah, there's some people who vote for the party that does not really represent their values. And that's something that you're, I guess, not supposed to say out loud. I don't know. But getting back to also just putting things in context. Now, I do find this for both sides of the argument, from conservative to liberal. both do this. Intentionally take what the other side said out of context and try to score political points with it, to demonize the other side, which is why one of the things that I do every morning on this program, it happens every single morning, I see a news headline. I don't care where the news headline came from. I see a news headline. And they accuse somebody of something. Or they portray a situation in a certain way. And I always end up going back to dig a little bit deeper to find what's the original material on this. And in most cases, when I find the original material, I find out that the whole story has been taken out of context by that reporter or by that news organization. And what makes me do this is because early on in my radio career, I got caught by that. And this is long before the internet was ever a thing. I got caught by that. I got bit by that a few times. I saw a headline. I thought, oh, that's shocking. And so I went with the story as was written, only to find out it was garbage. So I started to backtrack. The internet made it much easier. Here again, I don't use things like Google. I do have a Google story coming up. I mentioned it yesterday, Google and these past elections that they have tried to influence, but I'll go back on that one in a bit. But I don't Google things anymore. If I really want to get the backstory on something, I have to go to other sources to find out what's the original material. Because it's easy to get caught up. It's easy to read a headline and get fooled. That happens a lot. It's easy to hear propaganda from political parties and be fooled. Unless you stop and take the time to deep dive a little bit more to find out what was really said, what was really going on. And I think part of the problem is most people will not take the time to do it. And those involved in politics and in news media understand that you won't. And because you're not going to, they can go ahead and fool you. It's easy to fool you. It's easy to fool the American public. Which is why especially political season is one of the worst when each side is trying to attack the other and demonize the other. It's about the worst time for it.
Okay, for $10 billion, would you... Yes. No, I didn't finish the question. Listen here. There is nothing, and I mean nothing, that could come out of that little pie hole of yours to make me turn down $10 billion. Even if one random person had to die? Yes. The answer is yes. Okay, what if it was someone you knew? Yes, take my aunt, take my grandma. Hell, you could blow the block up. Can you even fathom how much money $10 billion is? Oh, it's just a hypothetical. And if it was a reality, I'd be first in line.
He's not a politician, but his pants are on fire. Could someone grab an extinguisher? Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods.
Coming up on 649, it's Wake Up Wyoming. Off to the icebox we go. Frank Gambino waiting by. Frank, last Friday we had a deep intellectual discussion on this program about the phobia of sitting on the outhouse hole.
Yes, and there's a name for that.
There is, yes. We came up with all sorts. We're looking for a name because no one's ever named it. And I got a lot of really good suggestions from people. But the problem is most people focused on either the outhouse or what was at the bottom of the outhouse as far as,
what about anatomy?
But yeah, see, what I'm specifically looking for was the name of the fear of sitting on that hole because you might get bitten in the butt, which has happened to people. Okay, so I think I finally came up with a name after a lot of suggestions from people all over the place. And there's even my sister made a suggestion that I thought was pretty good. But okay, let's put all of that, because I call it nip over holophobia.
Okay.
Yeah, it's because you're over the hole and you're afraid of being nipped. Yeah. As I was putting the story together, I came across a song about it.
No way.
Here is a small sample.
Hey, don't linger too long in the outhouse, for there's creatures that live in the hole. Hey, when your work there is done, will your pants up and run if you want to be saving your soul.
See, there's a really good
in
song.
Ireland.
This song has like four different
Scotland or
something like that. Yeah, the song has like four different stories about people who went to the outhouse and either got bitten or just flat out disappeared and were never heard from again.
Yeah, and you could kind of,
yes,
get lost in that.
You probably could, yeah. Now, I'm debating whether I should play the entire song on the air. So far, I've just played that little bit. But I looked at that and thought, now, Frank, I should not be surprised that somebody wrote a song like that.
No. But make sure you copyright your name there. Women's college basketball, the Wyoming Cowgirls did qualify for the WNIT with a record of 16-14. They will get a first-round bye in the tournament, so they'll play the winner of the Northern Colorado-Texas San Antonio game that will be tomorrow. After that, then UW will find out when and where they will play in the second round. And even with the first-round bye, there's no guarantee the Cowgirls will host that second-round game. Wyoming lost 6 of their last 8 games to finish, and they went 1-out in the Mountain West tournament, losing to Boise State, who was also in the WNIT. Women's junior college basketball, Casper College will take a little bit of time off until the National Junior College Tournament, which will be a week, when they'll play a week from Wednesday at 10 a.m. at the Ford Center in Casper. The T-Birds won the Region 9 tournament over the weekend, beating Northeastern Junior College from Sterling 81-69. They'll be the 14th seeded Nationals, and the Birds will draw Blinn, Texas in the first round. Blinn is the 19th seed. Casper is making their 4th straight appearance in the national tournament, but have not won a game at Nationals since 2011. Today in Laramie, it's Pro Day for the University of Wyoming football program. Pro Scouts will be on hand to evaluate some of the former Polk players who hope to be selected in the National Football League draft. Laramie native and offensive lineman Frank Crum will be one of those players showing off his skills, and he was just at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis. Linebacker Easton Gibbs was also at the Combine, and all told, 11 players will take part in Pro Day, which will be open to the public this morning at the indoor practice facility. The doors will open up at 8:45. High school softball, Cheyenne will host a one-day jamboree starting this afternoon. This was originally scheduled for last weekend, but too much snow on the ground to have anything worthwhile. Cheyenne Central, Cheyenne East, Cheyenne South, Laramie, Worland, and Rock Springs will be taking part in this, and the varsity games will begin at 10 this morning, then at 1 this afternoon, and at 4:30 this afternoon. Few former Casper American Legion baseball products have been doing well at the college level. Harrison Taubert has been playing at the University of Evansville. He's hitting .286 with 2 extra-inning game-winning hits last week. Carter Young plays for Grand Canyon from the Western Athletic Conference. He's a starting pitcher there. He's 3-1 on the year with 38 strikeouts and struck out 11 in their game against Stephen F. Austin this season. Corbin Kirk plays at Wayne State in Nebraska. He's also a pitcher. 27 strikeouts and 20 innings of work so far this season. That's it in sports.
Okay, so with all the games,
please, we got to play that whole song. I mean,
yeah, play the whole. Okay, I
mean,
might
unless
have to
it's
do
like
that,
10,
yeah.
15 minutes.
No, it's like a 4.5 minute song.
Well, that's maybe
yeah,
too long.
Maybe
yeah.
it's talk radio. I don't know. I usually, but it is. If people want to see it, it's on the Wake Up Wyoming site. Miss Mary will alert the story out, and you can just click on the video and play the whole song. If you want.
They made a video too?
Well, there's not like a video like a like
an
live
MTV
action.
thing?
It's
Yeah.
just like pictures of outhouses go by.
Oh.
Yeah, which makes total sense.
Pictures of outhouses.
But Frank, I would suggest go to the Wake Up Wyoming site when you get to your desk and listen to the whole song. It's hysterical, and it's true.
Yeah, I don't doubt it.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Frank. Coming up on some local business we got to take care of. We're going to roll into news time after that. National, local update on the weather forecast. You and I get back into it again. 888-97 Woods the phone number. That's 888-97 WOODS. Wake Up Wyoming. Ladies and gentlemen, the president made it up the stairs to Air Force One okay this time. I was watching. I was worried the whole time he was up. I swear it was even though it was the shorter stairs at the bottom of the airplane, a couple of times I thought he wasn't going to make it.
Today's show is sponsored by squid-flavored donuts, bringing the flavor of the ocean to your breakfast pastry.
And I don't want to be, you can have them all. No, I'm not going to be selfish about that. Okay, so no, seriously, the ridiculously large television that they have in the studio with me, while you were listening to your weather report, Air Force One, I don't know where he's going. There's the president, and he's going to walk up the stairs. And they open up this set of stairs at the bottom of the airplane, so he doesn't have to walk all the way up to the top of the airplane, right? And as the president is walking up the stairs, I'm watching. You're listening to the weather report. I'm watching to make sure he's going to make it up okay, right? He does. Okay, congratulations, Mr. President. You made it. Really hanging on to that arm rail all the way up, though. All right, now, before I get on to the next story here, I do have some comments coming in because I was talking to Frank Gambino about it. Last week, on a Friday, we had a deep and intellectual discussion that there is no word for the phobia of sitting on an outhouse toilet and being afraid of getting bitten in the rear end, which has happened, including the story that we gave to you of a woman in Alaska who was bitten in the butt by a bear, and the bear was underneath the hole in the outhouse. How he got under there, I don't know. What he was doing under there, I don't know, but he bit her butt when she sat down on the outhouse hole. It was just frightening. She laughs about it now, but it was frightening at the time. All right, so came up with a name. Now, Wild Willie in Prairie Center, bear endophobia, B-E-A-R, when your rear end is bare and you're vulnerable to anything, including a bear. Now, that's pretty good. My sister in Lake Wales, Florida, thought that the people that have disappeared down potties is quite alarming. Well, that comes from, as I put the story together, including a lot of other suggestions that people have, I thought, what do you want to bet someone wrote a song about sitting on the outhouse hole and getting bitten by something or worse? I'm not going to play the whole thing, but basically it's this.
Hey, don't linger too long in the outhouse, for there's creatures that live in the hole. Hey, when your work there is done, pull your pants up and run if you want to be saving your soul.
See, that there's several stories in the song about people who went there that either got bitten or just totally disappeared down the hole and were never heard from again. So, all right. Stories on the Wake Up Wyoming site. Miss Mary will alert it out at some point. Next thing I want to get out of the way today. Let's go back to the U.S. Supreme Court. Right now, the U.S. Supreme Court is talking about government censoring speech. There's a lawsuit that the Biden administration lost in a lower court. So they've appealed it up to the Supreme Court. And this has to do with during COVID, and there were things that Biden administration was saying was misinformation, which most of it turned out to be correct. I have to go through case by case to show you about where the misinformation came from. A lot of misinformation involving COVID came from the Biden administration, came from the news media, came from social media. And they were the ones who said that they were fighting misinformation. So we, as Americans, have the freedom to discuss this. And yet, the Biden administration was pressuring social media to either just take down comments that they said was misinformation or at least reduce its availability. So you could post it, but nobody's going to see it. And so there's some groups out there saying that's censorship by the government. We have the First Amendment. So this goes in front of the U.S. Supreme Court yesterday. They were listening to oral arguments. One of the justices seemed really confused about the First Amendment. And I want you to listen to her questions here. She had to get educated on the First Amendment.
Justice Jackson?
So my biggest concern is that your view has the First Amendment hamstringing the government in significant ways in the most important time periods. What would you have the government do? I've heard you say a couple times that the government can post its own speech, but in my hypothetical, kids, this is not safe, don't do it, is not going to get it done. And so I guess some might say that the government actually has a duty to take steps to protect the citizens of this country, and you seem to be suggesting that that duty cannot manifest itself in the government encouraging or even pressuring platforms to take down harmful information. So can you help me? Because I'm really worried about that, because you've got the First Amendment operating in an environment of threatening circumstances from the government's perspective, and you're saying that the government can't interact with the source of those problems.
Okay, so let's go back to the part. My biggest concern is your view of the First Amendment hamstrings the government in significant ways. Well, that's the purpose of the First Amendment. And then she says, in the most important time periods, by which you mean the periods of time that the government wants to silence speech of those who dissent with official government positions, like the Stamp Act of 1765? Yeah, this is exactly what the First Amendment was for, is to hamstring government. Not so government can't speak, because government has the right to free speech just like you do. So if you want to say something and Biden says that's misinformation, well, you're allowed to say it and he's allowed to say it's misinformation, and the two of you argue it out in the arena of ideas. That's how this is supposed to work. So then she says, well, what would you have the government do? I've heard you say a couple of times that the government can post its own speech, but my hypothetical, kids, this is not safe, doesn't do it. Just not going to get it done. Well, okay. Well, will someone please think of the kids? It has to be kids. But by that, I think she meant us, basically. Hey, don't do that. Well, the author of the article I'm reading here says everyone knows that the government cares about kids, which is why they colluded with Facebook, Google, and Twitter to shut down speech of anyone, even experts, who countered the government's narrative. And that's the part that really got me. What about when other experts, and there were many experts who stepped up and disagreed with the government's official position on various aspects of COVID? Experts stood up and said, that's not true. I'm a researcher with the following university, and I found out, or we found out, and because it wasn't the official government line, it was suppressed. What about that? Because that means vital, important, and true information is not going to get out because it doesn't agree with the official narrative? And then the justice says, and so I guess some might say that the government actually has a duty to take steps to protect the citizens of this country. And you seem to be suggesting that that duty cannot manifest itself in the government encouraging or even pressuring platforms to take down harmful information. Well, now, again, it depends on what we're talking about by harmful information. Because I would say that there's things that the government put out there during COVID that was harmful information, but it wouldn't be taken down because the government said it. Well, this author says, let's see, back in the year 1776, there was harmful information called the Declaration of Independence that has some philosophical ideas about people governing themselves. The government was quite upset by this and said, let's take steps to protect the citizens. She says, the justice says, I'm really worried about this because you've got the First Amendment operating in an environment of threatening circumstances from the government's perspective, and you're saying the government can't interact with the source of these problems? Yeah, that's actually kind of a scary quote. Here's what the First Amendment actually says. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, so in other words, we cannot have an official state religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. So if you want to be a religious person or not, that's your business, right? Or abridging the freedom of speech or the press or the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. Okay, government cannot stop what you say. And why not stop if you're allowed to? What if what they consider what you're praying as to be harmful? Yeah, as far as that's good, what if you're praying something they think is harmful? What I mean by that is, if you go back a few years, and I think this is during the Obama years, They were trying to force churches, saying that a church building was a public place. Therefore, the public toilet facilities there had to allow anybody who identified as whatever gender could go use whatever toilet they identified with. And the churches said, we're not going to do that. Well, so the churches were put under investigation. And as part of the investigation, they wanted to know what the minister was preaching, and they wanted to know the content of people's prayers. Now, there was a big backlash from the churches on that, and that's where government was forced to back down because it's none of your business. That's freedom of religion and freedom of speech. So you're not allowed to know what we were saying. I mean, if you want to, you can go ahead and attend the service, and the content of our prayers is our business. Why are you investigating that? You have no business doing it. It's a whole idea. The purpose of most of the Constitution is to restrain government so it doesn't get out of control. Unless, I'll remind you again, but I know you know this, during the COVID period, much of what government was saying was actually misinformation and dangerous. So who censors them? 718, wake up.
If it matters in Wyoming, it matters to Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods. Call Glenn at 888-97-WOODS and make your voice heard. AM 1030, K2 Radio.
7:23 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Okay, so I was just going through what one of the Supreme Court justices was saying yesterday in questions, oral arguments over freedom of speech during the whole COVID fiasco we went through. And one of the judges doesn't seem to understand the idea of the First Amendment. Yes, the First Amendment, the idea is to restrain government, not to restrain the people. And if government and the people disagree on something, they're allowed, not one cannot censor the other. Everybody's allowed to talk here. And the justice didn't seem to understand that idea. Well, what if somebody out there is saying something that's harmful? Okay, granted. What if your government is saying something that's harmful? What if the government has the misinformation? They think they're right, but they're wrong. Well, this is where we have the arena of ideas, and we discuss these things. And there is I was about to say real possibility, but it's happened. When there's scientists out there who are disagreeing with the official government narrative, and the scientists are being silenced. Well, if you're going to play it that way, then how about silencing and censoring the government for misinformation? I got a better idea. Everybody's allowed to talk. That's what the First Amendment is really all about, right? All right, so conservative watchdog Media Research Center released a report Monday that documented 41 times over the past 16 years that Google has interfered with U.S. elections, as they put it. So in a 19-page report, they said Google's impact has surged dramatically, making it even more harmful to democracy. Their words, right? Quote, from the mouths of Google executives, the tech giant let slip what was never meant to be made public. That Google uses its great strength and resources to reach and advance its leftist values, says the Media Research Center in its summary. Put another way, the president, Brent Bozell, Google's massive and deliberate efforts to interfere with U.S. elections over the past 16 years is unacceptable and the biggest threat to American democracy today. Again, his words. So the document is reporting, beginning with the number one incident in 2008. Google censored Hillary Clinton for supporting bloggers. They actually censored Hillary for that, right? During the 2008 primary election, it was no secret that Google had allied itself with the younger, more radical candidate, Barack Obama, instead of relatively more moderate and, well, they're saying here a more moderate candidate, Hillary Clinton. I kind of doubt that, but all right. MRC's 41st instance of election interference, Google's Gemini refusing to answer questions damaging Joe Biden. Gemini is an artificial intelligence system they have. And if you ask questions about, it's basically when you ask Google a question, which you can do, you don't have to type it. You can speak it, and Google will answer the question. And it doesn't want to really say anything damaging about Joe Biden. But ask it something damaging about Trump, and yeah. In many of the cases, the story says listed above, Google either admitted that it had made errors or attempted to downplay studies and reports of its actions, but neither was a defense as to why Google's election interference always seems to go in the same direction, which is left-wing. Right? Quote, there's absolutely nothing new here, just recycled list of baseless, inaccurate complaints, said Google to the New York Post. MRC also issued 3 recommendations. House Speaker Mike Johnson, Republican, Louisiana, to direct committees and chairmen to investigate Google. I think that's a waste of time. State legislators should resolve many questions as to whether Google is a common carrier, which it is, and they should follow the lead of Texas and Florida to ensure that big tech cannot engage in viewpoint discrimination. That's possible. Americans should stop using Google products. Oh, okay. And that's where my answer is. I use, but you tell me if you think I'm doing this wrong, because I do use Google, but the only part of Google that I use is Google has a platform which is really good for sharing my information with myself. So in other words, whatever I do on when I save a website, things like that, it's shared with everywhere else that I go. Everywhere else that I go, it's shared. It's on my phone. It's on, And if you're wondering, well, they can get information about. I'm not doing. I don't care. Everybody can see what I'm doing. I'm not doing anything bad. Everything that I do is perfectly okay. But it's just me sharing with myself work information about news and information and the kinds of things that I talk about on the air, okay, and my interest in other things like literature and science and aviation and so on. But when I actually go looking for information, I don't use Google. I quit a long time ago because I don't trust them to give me accurate information about anything. But there's many other search engines out there which I do trust, and I go to them instead. So that's the way I'm using it. But if some other company were to start doing what Google does as far as that information sharing that I like, I would just go ahead and switch over and say, forget it, Google, you've lost my trust. Although not a lot of people have my trust in that area right now. Coming up on 7:30, local news coming your way after that. Update on your weather forecast. You and I get back into it again. 888-97 Woods, Wake Up Wyoming.
Much colder.
Where Wyoming comes to talk. This is Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods on K2 Radio. Be part of the show at 888-97 Woods.
7:36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. All right, 888-97 Woods, the phone number, 888-97-WOODS. So, all right, getting some comments on the whole Supreme Court case now. We'll see how it goes. Again, the lower court ruled in favor of and against the Biden administration when it came to censoring what was said by just average citizens, them pressuring social media to censor people that the Biden administration disagree with. We'll see how the court rules. You never know these things. We'll just have to wait and see. But this also reminds me, I talk a lot about the whole cult of climate change, right? One of the things that bothers me a lot about this is the censorship of information. I'm constantly reading from scientists all over the globe that will have done multiple peer-reviewed studies that will show you that, in fact, CO2 is not a pollutant. We're not in a climate crisis. But even when scientists try to say these things, they're oftentimes repressed, not just by the administration or by government itself, but also by social media. And that also includes web browsers like Google will go ahead and suppress that information. Right. So, and even in their own universities, these scientists have a tough time saying what they want to say, even though they've done the studies and they have the proof to do so, rather than just opening up the discussion and let's settle whatever the discussion is, whatever it's about, whether it's about COVID or climate change or pick something else. Let's go ahead and have that conversation out in the open. like adults, and this is where it gets very difficult to do. So those people who own a platform like Facebook or like Google, especially when it's a social media where people are allowed to speak freely. In fact, they're the ones, if they have a particular point of view, they want to censor the other point of view. That's often the case, right? It's very difficult to find a really open free speech platform. Now, it was interesting to me when Elon Musk took over Twitter, which he now calls X, and I still can't get used to that. But all right, so he takes that over, and he opened it up to actual free speech. And wow, to watch the meltdown of people that didn't like the idea of real free speech. No, you're not allowed to bully or harass somebody, okay? No, you're not allowed to defraud somebody by trying to rip them off. We're not talking about that. But I mean a free exchange of ideas. And, yeah, oftentimes people get into battling arguments and so on, and that's the point of it. And there were those who were so used to being protected on Twitter, they could say whatever they want, as left-wing as it could be, even if it wasn't accurate or true at all, and Twitter would let them. But right-wing was heavily censored and denied. And even some people like Trump were just kicked off the platform. So when Musk came along and actually opened it up to real live freedom of speech, the meltdown, which it didn't surprise me at all, I don't think it surprised anyone, the meltdown that occurred, you're actually letting those people talk? Yes, we are. Freedom of speech is not just for people who you agree with, it's for everybody. And the idea is to let any idea hash out in the arena of ideas. I often find that those people who claim to have cornered the truth on something are the people who, are the purveyors of misinformation. They don't think that they are. They really think they have cornered the truth on something. But that kind of an arrogance leads to major mistakes, to say the least. And I know that someone has a weak argument when all they want to do is shut the opposition up. I mean, are you strong enough and firm enough in your beliefs that you can go ahead and put yourself out there and argue it? And I don't mean scream and yell argue, but I mean debate it like an adult. Can you actually do that? Oftentimes people who, they believe something, but they are unsure or weak in their beliefs for some reason. They just want to shut everybody else up. And that's oftentimes what we see here. So what's in front of the Supreme Court right now, I don't know how they're going to rule on this because social media has really changed the game, where anybody now can just go ahead and get up on some kind of a platform and say what they want to say, which is okay, which is a good thing. But there are those people who are afraid of that. I come across ideas all the time that I disagree with on social media. And if I choose to stop and answer, I often do using facts as I found them. And I don't listen to those. There are some people who are, the trolls that just want to start a fight. I don't listen to them. I often just delete troll arguments, and I just lay my argument out there with something to back it up, which is really what I wish most people would do. Unfortunately, most arguing on social media devolves into name-calling. Now, that's something I wish I could change. All right, coming up on Don Day's weather forecast, which starts off really nice, but...
Hey, how are you? I'm good. How are you? I'm good. How's things? Things are okay. Great. How are your things? My things could be better. I don't care. Great.
Yep, there you have it. A new level of crazy. And you heard it here first. Wake Up Woods on K2 Radio. Got something to say? Chat him on the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app or call 888-97-WOODS.
7:45 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. So, okay, Don, we have a hint of nice spring days for the next few days anyway, right?
We really do. I mean, the calendar this time of year and the weather don't always match, but that's going to be the case. We come into spring this evening officially, and we're going to, through Thursday, most of the state is going to enjoy some very mild temperatures. It is going to cool off a bit Friday, especially up in the central and northern counties of the state. Some cold air begins to leak in out of Canada. But 3 days is a good bet for everybody. central and northern Wyoming starts to cool off on Friday, but that coolness does not get to the south. So the southern part of the state is probably going to extend the very mild weather all the way into Friday and early Saturday. But by the middle to the end of the weekend, all across the state and region, temperatures are on a downward trend.
Okay. And it looks like as we get into the beginning of next week, as always, depending on where you are, Mother Nature's not done with winter.
No, not at all. In fact, it is going to be very wintry over a large part of the U.S., starting late this weekend into next week and all the way through Easter weekend, which pushes us into early April. The tendency is going to be for it to be more cold than it will be warm. This is going to be due to several Pacific fronts and storm systems coming on through. They are going to produce some snow. Where the snow falls and where it's going to be heaviest, well, we just have to wait till we get a little bit closer. But after this period of very mild weather, it's not going to get this mild again for a while. So savor it, enjoy it, take advantage of it.
Okay, because this is what everybody thinks of when they think of the first day of spring, which is today, by the way. And I was looking at also just the drought map for this region here. I would think, but correct me if I'm wrong, that most of the state ought to have a pretty green, flowery spring when it finally does get to us.
Well, yeah, a lot of that's going to depend on what happens here over the next 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay.
We put money in the bank with water from where we are now into early June. And one reason why it was so green, I mean, I don't think anyone can remember how green it was. I mean, last year was greenest of green.
Yeah.
A lot of that was because of April, May, and June and being so wet. I think the trend certainly does suggest that large parts of Wyoming, especially the central and the south, have the best chance of it being green. We do need moisture up in the northeast. It's dry up in that northeast corner. So for them to get green, they need to get more storms.
All right. Thank you, Don. Don and Dave with Day Weather. So here's wishing the northeastern part of Wyoming a really wet spring. I mean, I know you don't want to hear that, but off we go, but you need it. So off we go to the ice box where Frank Gambino is waiting by. Okay, so Frank, I'm going to take you down to Houston, Texas for this one.
Okay.
And I want you to picture Houston a traffic jam, and man, can they get them.
Yeah, it's big time down there.
And there's a rodeo guy who's got his horse trailer going and all that, and he's stuck in traffic.
Okay.
And he's got to get to the competition.
Yeah.
And it's not, I mean, it's just a couple of miles that he has to go, but traffic isn't moving.
Let me guess. He gets the horse out of the trailer and rides the horse to the arena.
Yes, exactly right. There's actually video of him right up the median of the highway. He just saddles up and just starts to gallop up the median of the highway here. So this is the story. It says, that's when Yates had an idea. He decided to get his horse and ride to the rodeo. He said, once I got on the horse and I was heading up there, I knew I was going to make it. So it's kind of fun. Everybody was hooting and hollering and videoing and stuff, and we were all having a good time. And I wonder, even if a police officer had seen that and thought, you can't do that, how is a police officer going to chase him?
Yeah. Well, as long as he knew what exit to get off.
Exactly right, yeah. Okay, let me see. He did well.
Good.
He made the finals.
Nice.
And he took home $10,000 for third place.
Holy cow, he had a great rodeo.
Right. Now, I assume that this means when he decided to do this, which was a smart decision, there has to be somebody left behind.
Right. They'll travel. They probably travel in pairs. So somebody would have to.
Because you got to get the whole truck and trailer and all of that to the event.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be funny if the other person's sitting with him like, you know what, I'll take the other horse and go with you.
We'll just leave
we'll just leave the trailer
here. Well, I want to see the expression at the facility where they're having a rodeo when he rides up. I mean, because he's not pulling up with a trailer. Did you forget something? You know, I mean.
Yeah. Just me and my horse.
Yeah. Comes galloping up to the whole thing. And then I'm sure that the horse was having a good time, too. But you got to kind of wonder what the horse was thinking. Because I don't think of the horse is putting together, hey, we're avoiding a traffic jam here.
You know what? He was out in traffic and still kicked it at the rodeo.
Yeah.
Hang on to that horse.
Okay, so now he has a story to tell. Now,
all day.
As I've always cautioned, though, with people like this, unfortunately, he has this great story to tell. So he's going to be an 80-year-old man.
Oh, yeah.
And it's going to be Thanksgiving dinner. Yes, you've told us about the time that you got on your horse and rode through Houston traffic right at the medium. We know, Grandpa.
Yeah, okay. Women's college basketball, the Wyoming Cowgirls did qualify for the WNIT with a record of 16-14. They will get a first-round bye in the tournament, so they'll play the winner of the Northern Colorado-Texas-San Antonio game. That will be tomorrow. After that, then UW will find out when and where they will play the following week in the second round. Even with a first-round bye, there's no guarantee the Cowgirls will host that second-round game. Wyoming did lose 6 of their last 8 games and went 1-out in the Mountain West tournament, losing to Boise State, who's also in the WNIT. Women's junior college basketball, Casper College will take a little bit of time off until the National Junior College Tournament game that they'll be in a week from Wednesday at 10 a.m. at the Ford Center in Casper. The T-Birds won the Region 9 tournament over the weekend, beating Northeastern Junior College from Sterling, Colorado, 81-69. So the T-Birds will be the 14th seeded Nationals, and Casper will draw Blinn, Texas in the first round. Blinn is the 19th seed. Casper is making their 4th straight appearance at the National Tournament, but have not won a game at Nationals since 2011. Today in Laramie, it's Pro Day for the University of Wyoming football program, as NFL scouts will be on hand to evaluate some Polk players hoping to get selected in the draft. Laramie native and offensive lineman Frank Crum will be one of the players showing off his skills, and he was just at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis. Linebacker Easton Gibbs also at the NFL Combine. He'll be at Pro Day too. All told, 11 players will take part in Pro Day, which will be open to the public this morning at the indoor practice facility, and the doors open up at 8:45. High school softball, Cheyenne will host a one-day jamboree starting this morning. Now, originally scheduled for last weekend, so there was just too much snow on the ground. So Cheyenne Central, Cheyenne East, Cheyenne South, Laramie, Worland, and Rock Springs will be taking part in this. So the varsity games will be at 10 this morning, 1 this afternoon, then 4:30 this afternoon. A few former Casper Legion baseball products have been doing well at the college level. Harrison Taubert has been playing at the University of Evansville. He's hitting .286 and had 2 extra inning game-winning hits last week. Carter Young plays for Grand Canyon in the Western Athletic Conference and is a starting pitcher. He's 3-1 on the year with 38 strikeouts. He struck out 11 in their game against Stephen F. Austin this season. And Corbin Kirk plays at Wayne State in Nebraska. He's also a pitcher. He has 27 strikeouts in 20 innings of work so far this year. That's it in sports.
So with all of these games, when do they go to class?
I know, yeah. And you know what? A lot of times, if you're on the road, you take your books with you.
Okay.
And sometimes the bigger programs have study hall.
Right.
Bring a tutor with them.
Okay. I didn't know that.
It's not easy to be in athletics and go to school. And
Right.
and what's remarkable is like, oh yeah, I had a 4.0. I'm like, really?
Well, the good news is you can have class on the bus because these bus trips from game to game can take hours.
And everything's on the internet now?
Yes. So there you go. Your teacher can stay home and teach everybody on the bus.
There was no internet when I was in school.
No, you couldn't do that kind of stuff.
No, you had to use whiteout for type.
Yes,
for
we were
typing
still
and stuff.
using stone tablets back then.
Yes.
All right, thank you, Frank. Coming up on some local business that we have to take care of, we're going to roll into news time. Get into open phones in the next hour of the program. So 888-97 was the phone number. That's 888-97 WOODS. It's Wake Up Wyoming.
That's cool.
The time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. My name is Glenn Wood. Thanks for joining me. Tuesday, first day of spring.
Today's show is sponsored by Squid-flavored donuts,
Yum.
bringing the flavor of the ocean to your breakfast pastry.
You guys can have them all. No, I don't. I really don't want to be selfish like that. You can take every single one. All right, the most dangerous time of the day, every day on this program, is open phones.
Warning. Wake Up Wyoming is about to enter daily open phones. This means that anyone will be allowed to call in and talk about anything. I mean, imagine if we actually allowed you on air to say anything you wanted. Scary, right? Well, we're just that brand of crazy. If you are offended by what other people think, then maybe you want to tune out right about now. Just saying. If you should choose to call, just remember, the more funny and interesting you are, the longer Glenn will keep you on the line. Obnoxious jerks will be hung up on. Dave, all right, strap in.
and let's do this thing.
888-97 Woods, the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. Talk about what I'm talking about. Change the subject. Fine by me. Real quick, I just want to get this story out of the way because now I have an excuse to play something that I sort of premiered yesterday, but this actually fits with the story. Hang on. First off, let me go ahead and do the intro song for this. And there's so many different intro. Here's the one by Babylon.
Wish we all could leave California now.
Wish we all could leave California now. It's probably one of the best parody songs they've ever done. And so true. Okay, because now that I think about it, I've got a couple of stories like this. So, and Lindsay, I'll put that one aside for just a minute. And pardon me, because I just realized I might have a second story to go with the first one. Yeah, this is professional radio, right? Critics complain, there's Japan, Watchdog Group. Oh, there we go. So the first story, now that I have them lined up, is about an actress. I don't follow celebrities, so I don't know. California actress Haley Duff listed her Santa Barbara-style home. She's in Santa Barbara, California, for $3.2 million. Her and her fiancé will be moving to Texas. She purchased the home for $1.9 million in 2020, and she said she loved the overall energy and space, but, well, she just couldn't handle California anymore, basically. So she decided to, and they talk a lot in the story about the home and how beautiful the home is. But she has just decided, I just can't take California anymore as an actress. And so she's going to move someplace that she's familiar with since she grew up in Texas. On that one, headline in this story, Hotel California. Majority of small businesses and bosses want out of California, but they can't figure out how to leave. And if you're thinking, get in your car and go, well, all of their money is tied up in their business in California, and they would have to sell it to go. And they're having problems with that. So, all right, the story says everything's more expensive in California, and how? They used to call it the sunshine tax, but now California has become a colossal tax suck for all manner of leftist government takings. The state steals tax money from workers to cover, everything you can imagine. I just got a whole list of things California spends money on, but okay. They take money even for homeless people from other countries that are now just, you thought homelessness was bad before. Okay. Majority of small businesses think they're living in California, like the Hotel California song, which, by the way, I think I have that too. Yeah, so a lot of people think that they're basically living the Hotel California song, where they desperately want to pack up and get out of there, but they can't afford to do it unless they can go ahead and sell everything that they have invested in California businesses and move on. And that's where the rub is. So they think they're living the Hotel California song. So, okay, pour through this story real quick here so you get the idea of it. This is a problem for a lot of people who are living in California, which makes me wonder, at some point did they just say screw it and just pack up what they can and go? And just let everything get seized, right? A majority of small business owners think they're living Hotel California, the song. Check out any time, but you can never leave. Put another way, they're all prisoners of their own devices, like the song said. They willingly started their businesses, but they're so entangled they can't get the heck out of town. Red Balloon, which touts itself as America's largest, most successful non-woke job board and talent coordinator, says Hotel California feeling is in full effect. A joint survey shows more than 800 businesses throughout, with the Freedom of Tax Index throughout the whole area. They've asked employers who are considering moving their businesses to another state and say, that said that they want to. And God, there's a lot of them. But why haven't you? And again, how do I do that when if I just left everything just packed up and left all of this stuff behind, I wouldn't have any money when I arrived in the next location. 7 of the most expensive American cities in California, and you need to make about $339,000 a year to clothe yourself just to live in a basic house. Think about that. There's certain cities like San Francisco where you have to make about $339,000 a year just to make a basic living, and live in a basic house. That's how bad it's gotten. So bad that you can't even pack up and leave. Which is why I get to go back and say the song that I premiered yesterday now fits better than ever.
Come and listen to my story about a man named Jed, a poor mountaineer, barely kept his family fed. Then one day he was shooting at some food, and up through the ground came a bubbling crude. Now he's a rich white guy living in Beverly Hills. Liberals, Botox, hypocrites, gun control. Well, the first thing you know, they tax his underwear. Kinfolk said, Jed, move away from there. Said, California is the place you need to leave. So they loaded up the truck and they moved to Tennessee. Low taxes, coal mines, and diesel trucks.
So at least the Beverly Hillbillies are able to afford to leave. Imagine living in a place, though, that's so bad that you can't afford to leave. You can't sell your house. You can't sell your business. Nobody's going to buy it. And all your money's tied up in that. So what do you do? Yeah, that's a situation that's really got to suck. Because these are people who are business people who do make money. I mean, I've talked to people over the years who've suggested, let's say there's someone who's on the lower end. They have a very basic job, convenience store, something like that. And they would like to move to take a better job somewhere else, but they can't figure out, how do I pack up and go when I can't afford, I don't make enough money to travel to where the job is. That's one situation. But now imagine being the person that you do have a successful business, but because you're in a state like California, you can't pack up and go because it's California. All right. Next story I have coming up for you after the news and information break. Laramie is on the short list of headquarters for a new nuclear business. Nuclear, yes. And how this works is going to surprise you.
Woke Radio, WOK! Time to get up, everybody, and go to work. You know you don't have anywhere to go, so let's play some soft, easy favorites that'll help you sleep in until noon.
Hope.
The only show broadcasting from a bunker under Devil's Tower. Hey, it's cold down here. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods, 6 a.m. weekdays on AM 1030 and
Wake Up
FM
Wyoming. All right, phone's open, so
95.1.
any topic you want. 888-97-WOODS, 888-97-WOODS. A little while ago, I gave you a story about micro-reactors, and Gillette, Wyoming was one of the ideas for micro-reactors to experiment with them. Now, these are, imagine a reactor about the size of your garage. If you have a single-car garage, a little bigger, you can do a 2-car garage style. And that is a little nuclear reactor. And don't think of it built in the same way as other nuclear reactors. This is a bit different. And that could actually provide a lot of power to a local little area with very little maintenance. All right, and for those people worried about nuclear waste, the way the waste is handled and recycled to make it something that they can reuse and reuse and reuse again and again and again before it finally peters out to the point there's not much radiation left. That's changed a lot, too. All right. So we talked about that a while ago. And Gillette, Wyoming is one of those places that's thinking about something like this. From Cowboy State Daily. Cheyenne's connection to nuclear devices could become something that's larger than just F.E. Warren Air Force Base, it says. The military base is responsible, as you know, for keeping our intercontinental ballistic missiles, which, by the way, I think we should constantly hold that over the heads of other states like Colorado and California. We have the button. But all right. Wyoming is fast becoming the new ground zero for small nuclear reactors to supply energy to industries that run up expensive utility bills. So in other words, instead of having to get electricity from your local power company, which can be expensive, but also because we're getting more and more into wind and solar, less and less reliable as well. So what if they just produce their own energy on site? So Cheyenne is on the short list to become the corporate headquarters and a spot to build a factory to assemble components for an emerging micro-nuclear reactor business under development by Gillette-based L&H Industrial, which started 60 years ago in the coal-rich Powder Basin area. So besides the state's capital and Laramie, also University of Wyoming, becoming home for what's being considered here, L&H business unit, Evercore Energy, working with nuclear reactor business. Quote, I think the momentum is gaining around nuclear, especially for micro-nuclear reactors in Wyoming. And this is the gentleman they interviewed from Cowboy State Daily was interviewing a gentleman who's Barreto, I think is his name. I hate to say this, but it's cowboy ethics. Let's not, we just have to implement it, is basically what he's saying. So, all right, last year, he became the first hire for Evercore's Energy's L&H CEO Mike Wandler, who hired him. And they've been scrambling to build up a nuclear service arm of the company from scratch. It's already made several corporate filings with the Wyoming Secretary of State's office to launch some kind of a startup. So some of the urgency to get the business going is growing momentum in the state of building a nuclear industry start with the one from TerraPower, which is Bill Gates, that one. This state also has attracted interest, the story says, from several outside nuclear reactor players, including, and it names the different companies. There's a whole chain of them here. You can read in the story by Cowboy State Daily. They also told Cowboy State Daily that the company is forging deals with vendors to create a kind of stop and shop for everything from consulting services to rolling out small nuclear reactors and assembling parts. Evercore Energy, it says, will likely select a headquarters sometime next year. Don't know exactly where that's going to be. Right now, though, they're working out of, according to this article, they're working out of Cheyenne. So potential clients include energy-starved critical infrastructure like airport data centers, heavy manufacturing, hospitals, databases. So imagine when you have something like a data center, they suck up a lot of energy. But also when you have airports and hospitals, military bases, they also can suck up a lot of energy. Right? And to have that energy local would make it more affordable for them. But also, again, the more we push into wind and solar and nonsense like carbon sequestration, the more expensive and less reliable energy becomes. So a lot of people would like just to go ahead and make it right there at home. We could have something that we could just have right here. Now, if you're wondering what a unit like this would look like, imagine something, again, about the size of a typical garage. You can even do just like a one-car garage, about that size. Just make it a box, a cube. Right? And inside, there's the reactor producing the electricity. And if you're wondering about, isn't that dangerous? Well, the way they do this, you could walk right by it, and you're not going to get all sorts of radiation leaking out of this. Although I do understand why people would still be nervous about it. So I think these companies have a lot to prove. Nuclear reactors, except for Russia with Chernobyl, nuclear reactors have been very reliable. I mean, if you're thinking, well, what about Japan? And yeah, that was because they got hit by a tsunami, right? So I'd be interested to see what they do with this. And also I wonder, when it comes to actually building these things, which they haven't done yet, to my knowledge, you can imagine the permitting process they're going to have to go through with the federal government to get this done. So to me, it's just really interesting that they're going to try something like this. Potential clients include, again, infrastructure, military bases, hospitals. In Cheyenne and Laramie, Evercore is already kicking the tires, the story says, on possible industrial parks and startup businesses. In Cheyenne, the company is considering industrial parks by Cheyenne Leads, the economic development organization operated by Cheyenne and Laramie County. The parks include 600-acre North Range Business Park, if you're familiar with that area. It also owns areas off of Interstate 80, the 500-acre Bison Business Park. and Niobrara Industries Park in southeast Cheyenne. So they already have Campstool Business Park is another one, and a 900-acre business parkway in southern edge of Cheyenne. In Laramie, the company is looking to pick up maybe Sierra Sky Technological Park, a joint venture for Laramie there. Okay, so while Evercore Energy is in the incubation stage, the story says it has ties with L&H. The business may eventually become a spin-off of a parent company, and contracts may be signed. So they may become several businesses, not just one. There are also plans to create relationships and vendors in other cities. I mentioned Gillette. There's also Casper, Rock Springs, Sheridan, Evanston, and all the way up to the border with Utah. Okay. Now, again, they have a long way to go on this with micro-nuclear reactors. So this is not something you can expect that they're going to have up in the next couple of years running. They have a very long way to go. They also have to prove the reactors, and then I wonder, as they want to start putting these little micro-reactors in communities, what the community is going to think of it, because a lot of people would think, you're putting something radioactive in my neighborhood? Are you sure this is safe? Because I'm thinking burning coal natural gas was a whole lot safer than this. You sure? So, yeah, there's going to be some problem with the public over this. I'm just thinking out loud about it as they want to put them in communities. Whether it's safe or not, you can understand that the public's going to be a bit worried about it. You've already heard that with the idea from Bill Gates of putting a reactor over in Kemmerer. So, yeah, it's going to be a long haul to get this done. I am right in Evansville. Reactors on Navy ships all over the world without a problem. Same approach for communities. See, I agree with that. All right, open phones. Let's wake up Wyoming.
I'm so happy to be here. Yeah. I'm just happy to be here. Still, I know the world's on fire, the situation's dire. A lot of work and courage gonna be required, but
much cold.
And we're back. Sorry, we were busy tricking pescatarians into eating Rocky Mountain oysters. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods.
.36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Okay, it's a Tuesday. It's the first day of spring. And for the next couple of days anyway, it's going to feel like it. Then things change up quite a bit. 888-97 Woods, the phone number, 888-97-WOODS. So I'm getting quite a few comments from people, which I understand. Some people with the micro-nuclear reactor idea in Wyoming. Some people are making comments, which I understand. When you take a look at nuclear submarines and even some aircraft carriers, they have reactors that have been running for a very long time. And there really haven't been any problems. So why not micro-nuclear reactors around? We'll start in the state of Wyoming and move out from there. And I look at the idea and think, I think we can pull it off. I really do. However, there's going to be a big public fear with it. There's going to be. And that's what this company is going to have to overcome if they want to get this done. So you're not going to see these micro-reactors anytime soon. You're really not. All right, ladies and gentlemen, imagine yourself young and you've gone out to a dance hall. And here's Greta Thunberg's face above the dance floor on big screen TVs, angrily looking down at everybody. How dare you? As you work up a sweat, dancing to the climate apocalypse, which is what these people think they're at. We're in the last times. I mean, obviously. So, okay. Real quick, we'll go to Virginia. A lawsuit filed by the Hartberg Institute, the Committee for the Construction of Tomorrow Act, and the National League Policy Center Let me see. Coalition of public interest groups filing a lawsuit, U.S. District Court of Columbia, against the Biden administration and their officials and agencies, seeking to overturn their approval of a massive wind turbine project off the shore of Virginia. The intent of the litigation is to stop Dominion Energy plans from starting construction in order to protect the North Atlantic right whale. Well, if they're not killing birds, they're killing whales and bats. Can't forget the bats. The lawsuit, which names the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, the National Marine Fisheries, and et cetera, at a time when incidents of dead whales washing ashore on the Atlantic coast, this is what they filed in court, are spiking. The lawsuit would force Dominion to cease construction of a massive wind turbine farm for its Virginia offshore wind, or VOW as they call it, to protect migratory and feeding waters of the North Atlantic right whale, which experts say about 350 individual whales remain. The suit claims that in September 2023, they talk about harm to the species and whales that have washed up on shore and so on. So, okay. The project consists of 176 giant wind turbines, each tower taller than the Washington Monument, with turbine blades larger than a football field. Imagine the size of that. Each blade is larger than a football field, to be constructed in the open ocean 25 miles off of the Virginia Beach, Virginia coast. If completed, the project would be the largest of its kind on planet Earth. Dominion Energy Project is but one of many massive offshore wind projects mandated by executive order of President Biden as he fights his climate crisis. Right. This is, again, government should not be involved in the energy industry. It's not the role of government. That's a private sector thing. In issuing its opinion, and it talks about how they plan to pursue the lawsuit. The courts include federal courts, District of Columbia. They've uniformly ruled that this approach is illegal in other endangered species cases because it misconstrues the language of the Endangered Species Act. In other words, the court says a type of slow slide into oblivion that is the very ills of the Endangered Species Act was meant to prevent. What I want to know is, if we have laws in place, there's about 55 dead right whales that have washed up on the beach of the East Coast as they've been putting these wind turbines out there. So what they would have to prove in this case is that the wind turbines are actually the cause of it. Because I know there's been a lot of talk saying that they are the cause of it. You'd have to prove that they actually are the cause in court in order to do this. In the meantime, I wonder, why can't we use the same kind of lawsuits? I think we can. Because of the birds and the bats, especially the endangered species that get killed. But remember now, it was Casper, Wyoming, the first wind farm that killed an eagle, and they were fined for it. And in reply to that, the Obama administration gave them a permit to kill more birds for the next 30 years. And all wind farms get that. You can kill so many birds and bats every single year. I don't look at that as solving the problem. But okay, we'll see how that lawsuit goes. Next one up, Google fights ads, a new feature that displays, I called this up yesterday because somebody that I know was looking for airplane tickets, right? And they just went to Google and just started Googling, hey, flights from here to here. Now, usually I go someplace specific. I go to like Expedia, whatever. But you can just go ahead and Google that. What Google does is it puts up, here are the airplane tickets available, and here's what your carbon footprint would be. So I'm going to experiment with you. Yeah, it tells you what. A while ago, a few months back, I saw a new pickup truck on display. And as I'm reading the sticker, one of the things that's on it is, and here's what your carbon footprint for this truck is. Well, I didn't think the carbon footprint was big enough. Let's see. I'm typing in There we go. I'm going from here to, I'll just say I'm going to Tampa. That's someplace that I'm, flights and destinations and so on. Okay. Yeah, and here we go. And it tells me, there's some pretty cheap flights, by the way. I did find some really inexpensive flights to do this. But yeah, it shows here, there's a bunch of sponsors and so on and places that I can go. I'll just go ahead and try this one and see what it says. But yeah, it wants to tell me what my carbon footprint is in order to make the flight. Okay. I really didn't know that this existed until somebody pointed it out to me. Do you know that this is what they do? Okay, now some of these are sponsored. There's the flight. There's a connecting flight. Show the flights. I click on. Now, in order to do this, I have to pretty much just stick to what Google is showing me. If I go to where I usually pick up airplane tickets, they don't show me anything like this. But if I go to where Google does this, then they have to, here we go. If I want to go, my emissions are 13% emissions. Now, here's another flight if I wanted to go from where I'm living in Wyoming to Tampa, which has a couple of stops. Okay, it doesn't, it's not like down to Denver and then straight over. So a couple of stops, it's 59% emissions. Now, this is why I want to know, what do you mean by, life cycle of greenhouse emissions, CO2, are calculated one passenger in your selected seating class based on multiple factors. Oh, okay, gee, what are the multiple factors? Now, again, CO2 is not a pollutant. It's good for the planet. Where does Google get this information? And then they talk about CO2 and how they calculate other effects of flying on global warming. Yeah, okay. So just so you know, they're putting this information out there by Google to show you, just like when you buy a car. Next time you go to buy a car, if you remember, take a look at the sticker on the car, and you'll probably find that there's some climate emissions nonsense on there as well. But they won't put those same emission standards, truthfully, on an electric car the way they really should be, because your electric car has high emissions, not low. They'll try to tell you, it's zero emissions. Absolutely not true. It's Wake Up Wyoming.
It's Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods on AM 1030 K2 Radio. Join the show at 888-97-WOODS.
8:49 is the time. Wake Up Wyoming. Off we go to the icebox. Frank Gambino is waiting by. Okay, Frank, I'm starting a list here because this is the kind of research that I like to do. Do you ever just do little studies of things?
Well, I look up lists is what I do. But and I'm assuming that they're correct or relevant.
Okay. Yeah, that's I always look at that and go, how do I know that the person who did this study is on the right path?
Right, yeah.
So I noticed there was no study, no list out there for things that we poke with a stick.
Bears are not one of them.
No, don't poke a bear with a stick. Okay.
Fire
you poke with a stick.
Campfires, yep, absolutely.
A dead body.
No, you don't poke it with a stick.
But people do.
Well, they do. I'm not.
Yes. Okay. No, I'm just saying.
I don't want to get near anything.
What do people poke with a stick? You find something dead, be it human or animal, whatever, you go over and you poke it with a stick.
Campfire.
Campfire, definitely, yeah.
Wasp nest.
Wasp nest, yes. People do that. People
bumblebee hive.
Okay, bumblebee hive, something like that, yeah.
A cat.
Cat, okay. Now, it depends. Now, dead cat or living cat?
No, living, yeah. Just
living cat. Do you poke your cat with a stick?
Well, not very hard.
No, okay, but you do. Okay,
yeah.
Okay. People do poke things with sticks then, okay. So, yeah, I just need to see. I even remember watching one of the Austin Powers movies. Someone had a big mole, and Austin starts poking it with a stick.
Yeah. Sometimes as a kid, the balls you were playing with, got stuck in the trees.
Uh-huh.
So you had to take another stick or a rock to poke the ball out of the branches.
I do remember sometimes coming across, now, of course, I grew up in more marshy areas. Before I went walking in some area that looked kind of mucky, I would poke it with a stick.
just to find out if you're not going to sink.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, okay.
I'm not walking in any mucky things in Florida.
Okay.
You
So
know,
we
you don't know who knows what's in there.
A list of things that people poke with sticks. I'll start my research immediately.
All righty. In women's college basketball, the Wyoming Cowgirls did qualify for the WNIT with a record of 16-14. The Cowgirls will get a first-round bye in the tournament, so they will play the winner of the Northern Colorado-Texas San Antonio game, and that will be held tomorrow. Then after that, they'll find out when and where they will play in the second round next week. And even with a first-round bye, there's no guarantee the Cowgirls will host that second-round game. Wyoming has lost 6 of their last 8, and they went 1-out in the Mountain West tournament, losing to Boise State, who is also in the WNIT. Women's junior college basketball, Casper College with a little time off until their National Junior College Tournament game. And it's a big bonus for the T-Birds because it's in the tournament this year is in Casper. So they're going to play a week from Wednesday at 10 a.m. at the Ford Center, taking on Blinn, Texas. Now, the T-Birds beat NJC from Sterling on Saturday afternoon, 81-69. They will be the 14th seed at Nationals, and Blinn comes in as the 19th seed. Casper College is making their 4th straight appearance at the national tournament, but have not won a game at Nationals since 2011. Today in Laramie, starting here in a few minutes, it's Pro Day for the University of Wyoming football program, so Pro Scouts will be on hand to evaluate some of the former Cowboy players who hope to be selected in the National Football League draft. Laramie native and offensive lineman Frank Crum will be one of those players showing off his skills. He was just at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis. Linebacker Easton Gibbs was also at the NFL Combine. All told, 11 players from the Brown and Gold will take part in Pro Day, which is open to the public, and that will be starting this morning here pretty soon at the indoor practice facility. High school softball, Cheyenne will host a one-day jamboree starting this morning, originally scheduled for last weekend, but there was just too much snow on the ground. Cheyenne Central, Cheyenne East, Cheyenne South, Laramie, Worland, and Rock Springs will be taking part in this, so varsity games start at 10 this morning, at 1 this afternoon, and at 4:30 this afternoon. Few former Casper Legion baseball products have been doing well at the college level. Harrison Taubert has been playing at the University of Evansville. He's hitting .286 with 2 extra inning game-winning hits last week. Carter Young plays for Grand Canyon from the Western Athletic Conference as a starting pitcher. He's 3-1 on the year with 38 strikeouts and struck out 11 in their game versus Stephen F. Austin this season. Corbin Kirk plays at Wayne State in Nebraska Division II school. He's a pitcher with 27 strikeouts in 20 innings of work, and that's it in sports.
Okay, Frank, there's going to be some people here that in just a little while are going to be lost right back where you are.
Okay.
A lot of people, for the first time when they walk down the hallways by the studios there, get lost in those hallways.
I'm going to poke them with a stick.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, I just saw a couple of people head down to see our friend Drew down at the end of the hallway. And you know when people have not been back here before, they tend to get turned around.
Yeah.
So if anything, either poke them with a stick is fine. Do you have some kind of snacks and water?
No.
They might get lost.
I'm going to
back.
find a pointy stick.
Okay.
You're over there. Go.
Can we at least put some arrows in the hallway so people can see how to get out?
Yep.
That happens a lot. All right, thank you, Frank. Yeah, there's quite a few people who do get lost back here in these studios. The hallways are confusing. So, let's wake up, Wyoming. Six at time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. It's Tuesday. It's the first day of spring, and it's open phone. So 888-97 Woods the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS.
Today's show is sponsored by Squid Flavored Donuts, bringing the flavor of the ocean to your breakfast pastry.
And I'm not going to be selfish. You guys can have all you want. I'll just sit back and watch you eat.
Warning, this show contains reference to guns, liberty, limited government, low taxation, the cult of climate change, free thinking, cigar smoking, short people, rubber chickens, Karen's bureaucracy, liberal buzzwords, tour runs, traffic, toilets, terrible jokes, and more. No apologies will be issued. Guest callers may express any opinion they want without fear of being canceled. Unless you're a loudmouth jerk like Dave, then Glenn will hang up on you. Strap in, hold on to your coffee, and feel free to participate.
This disclaimer does not refer to every person named Dave, just one particular Dave from San Francisco. We know a lot of Daves. They call this show all the time, and they're great people. So don't call this program and complain that we use your name. That would be a real Dave move, Dave. So yesterday, Casper Airport, there was something on the floor of the restroom at the airport. You know, if you're walking into the terminal, you got to go, you go in there. And this poor cleaning lady is trying to clean it up, whatever it was. And it made her ill. No report on what it was, but it literally made her ill. And so the airport, not knowing what that was, they evacuated the terminal. The only people it affected, which was minor, an airplane showed up, landed with passengers, and they were not allowed to go through the terminal because it was closed off till they figured out what it was. And so everybody got their baggage out there. Thank God it was a nice day. And everybody just walked down the ladder. You know, the stairs to the airplane that Biden can't take anymore because you'll fall. And they picked up their luggage right there on the apron and walked out around the building. Well, okay, so after some investigation, and hazmat was called. They say it's not toxic, it wasn't harmful, but it smelled really disgusting, and it was making people feel ill, and they wanted to throw up, but they don't know what it was. But yeah, the airport's clean now. You can use that bathroom just fine. Decide to get that story out of the way, but the hell was someone doing in there? All right, study. And now, again, I'm not big on studies, but now and then I look at one and go, well, I can believe this. Woke people more likely to be anxious and depressed. Yeah. Now, we should define what exactly we mean by woke because the definition is broadening. Originally, the woke movement was people who consider themselves to have woken up, and now they're battling society's ills and all sorts of injustices and so on. But woke has gone on to mean other things, including I came across on YouTube some videos that woke person does this, woke lady does this, woke college student does it. And I began to realize the only thing that was common about all of these people was they were just stupid. It had nothing to do with their political beliefs or their social beliefs or anything like that. These were just stupid people doing stupid things. But now the word woke is being attached to them. So as the definition expands, now woke is referred to as just stupid, right? So for this particular story, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about people who are social justice warriors, like our superhero, which, if you like, I could play I have to write some new social justice warrior episodes. But, our hero, the social justice warrior, he is considered to be woke. He's a social justice warrior. So the story here says a new study went about creating a psychological assessment of those who identify as woke and their beliefs. The study also found that those who held such beliefs were more likely to report being anxious and depressed. Well, I can see why. This is much like those believers in the cult of climate change honestly think we're living in the end times. And they're constantly anxious and having panic attacks and depressed all the time. The story says, while critical social justice or intersectional or woke discourse draws mainly from dynamics within American society, they started looking at people in Europe as well. The arrival of critical social justice, often called woke, has sparked debate in European media. So the debate was largely data-free at first. It could be considered a worthwhile question, though. What are these people like and why are they this way? No reliable and valid instruments prior, but they decided to put it together. Okay. So this eventually led to the creation of an assessment test on the critical social justice attitude of people who consider themselves woke. And it comes down to 7 questions, okay? If white people have, on average, a higher level of income than black people, it is because of racism. See, this is what they think. That's a conclusion that they draw. University reading lists should include fewer white people and European authors. Microaggressions should be challenged often and actively. Now, microaggressions, That's something I always get a laugh at, because that's where any little thing that you say, somebody can attack you over. Do you understand that that is a microaggression? In fact, let me go to, that's a perfect one. Okay, on the microaggression front. And since I'm talking about people who are depressed and feeling anxious, there's this bit I have here on people who are in therapy for being woke.
Okay, everyone, welcome. This support group is for people who are so woke that they are finding it impossible to have any fun at all. We have somebody new with us this week, so would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Oscar. I think, like a lot of you guys, for me, it started with the little things, signing an online petition, going to a march. Well, I mean, before I knew it, I was writing to The Guardian about LGBT representation in the Harry Potter books.
Which is shocking, by the way. All right, Lily, we've all read your blog. Don't worry, Oscar. You've come to the right place. All of the young people in this room are ruining their lives by being overly virtuous.
That's actually a microaggression to say young people, because it carries subconscious bias towards the elderly.
Actually, what you're doing is denying agency to the elderly, which is arguably much worse. See, this is what I'm talking about. You see, it's a slippery slope. 1 minute you're carrying a reusable water bottle, fine, and the next minute you're arguing that water is racist.
Oh my God, is water racist?
No, it's just an example. Right, how did you guys get on with the homework that I set you?
Guys isn't an especially inclusive term.
Not now, Jamie. By homework, do you mean having to watch that old people sitcom? It's called Friends, Lily, and you were supposed to watch it and enjoy it. Well, I tried, but I found it deeply problematic. Why? Well, there's the homophobia, the transphobia, the fatism, and the slut-shaming, and could Chandler be any more annoying? You can't go through your 20s worrying about every aspect of everything. You have to pick your battles. And just remember that it doesn't really matter, because by the time you hit your 30s, most of you are going to be massively right-wing anyway. Have any of you started to think that maybe poor people don't deserve benefits? No. Well, watch out for that one, because that's how it starts. Look, I understand this has all been a bit much for some of you, so let's take 5 and have a hobnob.
I find the word hobnob very phallocentric.
So that just fits perfectly here. There's a few more things that they ask people to see if they're woke. And they say trans women who compete with women in sports are not helping women's rights. We don't need to talk more about the color of... we don't need to talk more about the color of people's skin. A white person cannot understand how a black person feels equally as well as a black person can understand them. A member of a privileged group can adopt features or culture elements of a less privileged group. Okay. They can or can't? Let me go back. Privileged group can. Yeah, Canada. Okay. It gets really... like that bit I just played, the whole thing is convoluted. So the story says they found a correlation between higher agreement with critical social justice attitudes and increased reports of anxiety and depression. So the more woke a person is, the more anxious and depressed they are. And I wonder which came first. Are they two hand in hand? I mean, did the wokeness lead to the anxiety and depression, or does someone who is anxious and depressed end up becoming woke? Okay. Agreement with the statement, if white people have on average a higher income than black people, is because of racism, exhibited the largest positive correlation with anxiety and depression. And then you got to get into the whole cult of climate change thing. However, the associations were more strongly correlated with political orientation rather than critical social justice theory. So this is something I find that often is the case. And I can get more into the story, but I think you get the idea of this. As more often is the case, it's not so much about whether someone is of the right party or not, but do you agree with them? Because if you don't in the slightest possible way, I mean, the slightest little infraction, and they will rip you apart. You'll be ripped apart by your own. If you're woke and you make the slightest micro infraction, they'll rip you apart. But this is how these people live, constantly in attack mode, constantly in anxiety and depression mode. I wonder if there's a medication that we can develop for woke.
Do you have any history of mental illness in your family?
I have an uncle who does yoga.
Allergies?
Cowardice and weak-willed men. And hazelnuts.
Sexual history?
Epic and private.
Okay.
Well, that image is going to stick with you all day. Wake Up Wyoming goes anywhere you do with the Wake Up Wyoming app. Free download for Apple and Android. This is K2 Radio.
9:23 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. My name is Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me. Okay, so 888-97 Woods, the phone number. That's 888-97 WOODS. There are some people that are living, as far as they're concerned, in the final days, and it's all your fault.
So put on your respirator and let's fix that generator. And while we're out, we'll mend our fences too. See, I'm not afraid of dying, just got reasons for surviving. I want one more day in the apocalypse with you.
And so much of it is taught to our kids today in the worst possible ways. So, for example, website teaches kids to die at their carbon limit. Yes, it actually does. And ABC website has been accused of portraying farmers and forestry workers, says the story, as evil and telling kids how much carbon they can produce before they die. The Planet Slayer website, that's what it's called, the Planet Slayer website, which can be accessed via science section of the ABC homepage, as in, ABC TV, also demonstrates people who eat meat and those who involved in the nuclear industry, things like this. Imagine kids that live in Wyoming that shoot guns and produce cattle with their family. They live on ranches, right? Imagine what they... All right. The site has several features, including a cartoon series, Adventures of Greena. Yes, Greena. And a tool called Professor Spikinski's Greenhouse Calculator to help kids work out their carbon footprint. The calculator lets users compare their own carbon output to the average greenhouse pig and estimates at what age a person should die at so they don't use more than their share of Earth's resources. By the way, this is in Australia that this is happening. I should mention that, not the U.S. So too much production causes the cartoon pig to explode on the website. Oh, that must... Boy, talk about building anxiety in kids. If you produce too much CO2, your cartoon pig will explode right in front of you. Victoria Liberals senior Senator Mitch Fifield is his name, questioned the accuracy and appropriateness of some of this imaginary stuff on the website. He said, I know there's a little bit of goth in all of this, but we might be taking it a little bit too far. Do you think it's appropriate that they portray the average Australian as a pig, and it's appropriate for the website to be geared toward kids who are on average they're portraying kids as massive, overweight, and ugly, with oozing slime from their noses and mouths, by the way, and that they use up too much CO2 or produce too much, they blow up, and it's ugly. He said episode 2 of the 12-part series, Fistful of Wood Chips, portrayed a logger as evil. If you don't think that's a particularly helpful way of depicting hardworking Australians, he said, then why are we trying to go about making an honest living in the first place? Because if you try to make an honest living, you're just an evil dude, he said. So I'm not sure it's helpful to portray struggling farmers who are working to improve their yield as evil. Okay, now, sticking with Australia for a moment. I hadn't heard about this until this morning. You know, they want people to go out and kill camels in Australia to save the planet. Yeah, as scientists, the story says, and environmentalists in Australia search for ways to reduce the nation's greenhouse gas emissions, they suggested as killing as many as 1.2 million wild camels. We have... Let me see. There are about 1.2 million feral camels in Australia, and that population is expected to reach 2 million by 2020. And they're a major contributor to emissions, they said. The Australian Government Department of Climate Change and Energy Efficiency released a study
on the issue. Apparently, a camel produces an estimated 100 pounds of methane a year. Now, I want to know who got behind the camel and tested that. Or is it belching like a cow, which is about the same as 1.1 tons of carbon dioxide in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, so they say. As for why there are so many in Australia, they were introduced in the 1840s to help explorers go across the massive wastelands out there in Australia, as you know. So much of Australia just empty like that. So what does the report suggest? Well, get sharpshooters, and sharpshooters could earn carbon credits for slaughtering camels. There. That's how they hope to save the planet. We're going to hire a bunch of sharpshooters, or we're not hire. We're just going to go ahead and pay them. If you're a sharpshooter and you want to go camel hunting, every time you shoot down a camel, we'll pay you for that because you're helping to save the planet. That's Australia for you these days, ladies and gentlemen. Coming up on 9:30, local news coming your way. Right after local news update on the weather forecast, you and I get back into it again. Still got open phones going. 888-97 Woods. Mike from Leeds, South Dakota says, I like exploding pigs when I get bacon. Yeah, it's Wake Up Wyoming.
Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods on K2 Radio. Join the conversation at 888-97 Woods.
.36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. 888-97 Woods the phone number. Off we go to Jim and Casper. Hi, Jim.
Good morning, Glenn. How are you?
Good, sir. What you got?
Good. So tonight the Casper City Council is going to meet and discuss spending $86,000 on Wi-Fi for the Ford Event Center. And there was an article in K2 that talked about it and said, well, people go there and they really like to live share the events that they're attending. And my question is, are there other things that the city of Casper could spend $86,000 on versus Wi-Fi so people can just send selfies of themselves at concerts and things?
I wonder.
It just seems a little bit ridiculous.
Okay, and I don't know what they're dealing with here. But I would like to know why it costs $86,000.
Well, it's a big place, Glenn, and it's $86,000 of money that they were going to spend on a skyway. So they're going to appropriate that money, and then it says the city's portion is going to come from 1 cent tax funds.
Right.
Our 1 cent funds. So I know they've turned things down in the past, and wow, is Wi-Fi at the event center, so critical? And if they don't have it, our big name act's not going to come to the event center. If they don't have Wi-Fi, are people going to go, I'm sorry, I can't go see?
Well, now I'll ask another question on the same thing. If it's going to cost that much money, can it, I don't know what they charge to go to events there, but can it just be part of the ticket price?
Yeah, good question.
Okay. I mean,
is it going to be revenue positive or revenue negative, or why are they doing it? Just so it's convenient, so people can have Wi-Fi there. And in this day and age, everybody has data. No one wants to connect to public Wi-Fi. It's a security risk.
Right.
And, the city comes up with this grand plan, and the city manager says, we can use this money and this money. And I just look at our potholes. I look at the homeless issues. I look at all these things going on in our city. Our parks and recs, they just spent money to do the things. The Law and Justice Center's got a big, fat override because nobody bothered to think, hey, there might be asbestos in that building.
Right.
And here we're going to, make it so little Timmy can connect on his iPhone and, send a selfie and post it to Instagram.
I think that's the answer then. Just go ahead and pass it on, not to the taxpayers, pass it on to the people who attend events. There you go.
Yep. So that event's tonight, and it'll be interesting to see how they vote on it.
All right. Thank you, Jim. I appreciate it. Head on over to Laramie. Mike is on the phone. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Glenn. The new Beverly Hillbillies song, I like it.
Oh, good. Thank you. I should have, at the end of it, when it said come on in and set a spell, put some funny things in there. Have a burger, something like that would have been good.
Yeah. You were trying to get it to locate in Wyoming, so why not change Tennessee to Matisse?
I thought about that, and some other people named a few other towns that would have rhymed as well. But, I mean, to me, it was one of those things that everybody knows Tennessee. Everybody knows the rhyme and knows where Tennessee is. A lot of people don't know where Matisse is. So would they associate that with Wyoming? That was my concern. Or did I overthink it?
No, you don't overthink it.
Okay.
No, I can understand. The other thing I want to mention is there's been a news story about the governor vetoing a Senate Bill 13, about the state suing the federal government over this land grab near Rock Springs.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons the governor vetoed it is he said the $75 million the legislature wanted was he was not fiscally conservative. And this from a man who wants to spend tens of millions of dollars on the junk science of carbon capture and sequestration.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I have a problem with the governor on some of these decisions when it comes to spending. He was really upset for a while there. It looked like they may not give him any discretionary money for his carbon sequestration or anything else like that, which I would, or at least give him the money with some oversight. I mean, either of those would have been fine too, but I prefer just not to put the money out there.
Yeah, it just seemed rather strange that he wants all this money for his pet projects, and that's not fiscally conservative. But to say what this legislature did was, I mean, it sounded somewhat hypocritical to me.
Yeah, no, I agree. At some point when the governor gets done signing or vetoing all the bills that are in front of him, he'll come on this program. So what I always do is I toss out the questions, and I don't try to argue with him. I just let him answer, so you can hear what his answer is and just decide for yourself. So that'll happen at some point in the future here. All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. No, I don't look, I get to shoot my mouth off 5 days a week, 4 hours a day, 5 days a week. That's why when people come up and say hi to me in person, I'm so easy to get along with because I spend 4 hours a day, 5 days a week in a padded room called a radio studio, venting. That's how this works. And then when I get someone like the governor on and I have some disagreements, I'll go ahead and ask him the questions, but I'll let him answer. You heard what I think. Now here's a chance for you to hear what the governor thinks in his own words. And again, he and I don't think he's a bad human being. We just have some big disagreements here. I think as a human being, he's a pretty decent guy. But we just have some big disagreements here. And some of the things that Mike was just talking about from down there in Laramie are among those disagreements. I would prefer government not get involved in energy at all as far as the whole carbon sequestration thing. Get out of it. Get out of the energy sector. Let the free market decide how we go here. Don't encourage anything. Don't subsidize anything. Let the market do what it does. It's 9:42. Wake up.
Got something to say to Glenn? Use the chat on the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app and get your opinions straight to the studio with K2 Radio.
9:48 is the time. Wake Up Wyoming. Off to the icebox we go. Frank Gambino is waiting by. Frank, this entire next story that I have for you all started off just moments ago, when I saw a picture of a donkey in the back of a squad car.
In the back of a squad car. This wasn't the green donkey that was in the St. Patrick's Day Parade.
No, different one. And I wondered, what did he do? And I've seen ducks in the back of squad cars, all sorts of animals. All right. Yeah. So I looked it up. 12 different animals that were arrested.
For public intox?
That would be funny, but...
Jaywalking?
An Indian elephant went on a killing spree, was sentenced to probation.
Oh, no, those elephants over there, they'll mash you.
That'll teach him. It happened during a local religious festival, and the elephant during the festival just kind of went nuts.
Wild, yeah. But he got probation, they'll stick him out there in the safari and just, go out there and,
Police finally foiled Lorenzo, the talking parrot. He was trained from birth to be a lookout when the drug cartel members, in other words, they're doing their drug cartel thing. And as the cops get close, the parrot yells, "Run, run, the cat's going to get you."
Oh, okay.
So they arrested the bird, and I guess they give him a new.
He'll be a jailbird.
Yeah. Oh, hey. Apparently, the drug cartels have used up to about 1,000 birds.
Yeah. Well, it's cheap.
Okay.
Cheap security, I guess.
Let's see. Mookie the monkey had to spend his birthday in jail. Mookie, a monkey, was put under house arrest by Florida police. Despite the owner's warnings, he bit someone.
Well, what is he doing in somebody's house?
I don't know. So they put him on 30-day house arrest. Now, does the monkey know that he's on house arrest?
No, but the people who own the house know that.
Let's see. Trespassing monkey was suspected of spying in India. Randomly followed people home and then just sort of watched them outside of their windows.
Okay, that's
a peeping Tom kind of a thing.
Boy, those monkeys are everywhere.
Black Bengal goat doesn't know when to stop. This goat was warned once before. How does the goat know? But let me see. The crime, eating flowers from the district magistrate's garden.
Well, the magistrate, which is the judge, can...
Yeah.
He judges that as being illegal.
Okay. Let me see. Russian prison guards intercept a cat. They basically took a bunch of tools that can be used to pick locks and stuff, and they taped them to the cat and then sent the cat in to find its owner.
Okay.
So they arrested the cat.
Really?
Yeah.
Off to the gulag. Holy cow. Where do you find this stuff?
Well, there's this thing called the interweb. All the kids are talking about it.
Right,
it's got all sorts of... I love it because it's got all sorts of just absolutely useless information on it.
It's all good. We love it. Women's college hoops, the Wyoming Cowgirls did qualify for the WNIT with a record of 16-14. They'll get a first-round bye, and they'll play the winner of the Northern Colorado-Texas San Antonio game that will be played tomorrow, and then UW will find out when and where they'll play in the second round next week. Even with a first-round bye, there is no guarantee the Cowgirls will host the second-round game. Wyoming lost 6 of their last 8 games and went 1-out in the Mountain West Tournament, losing to Boise State, who's also in the WNIT. Women's JUCO basketball, Casper College will be in that national tournament that will be in Casper coming up next week. T-Birds won the Region 9 tournament over the weekend, beating Northeastern Junior College from Sterling, Colorado, 81-69. So, with that win, they are the 14th seeded Nationals. The Birds will play Blinn, Texas in the first round a week from Wednesday at 10 in the morning at the Ford Center, and Blinn is the 19th seed. Casper College is making their 4th straight appearance at the national tournament, but have not won a game at Nationals since 2011. Today in Laramie, going on right now, it's a pro day for the University of Wyoming football program. NFL scouts on hand to evaluate some of the former Polk players who hopes to catch on with the NFL draft. Laramie native and offensive lineman Frank Crum, one of the players showing off his skills, and he was just in the NFL Combine in Indianapolis. Linebacker Easton Gibbs was also at the NFL Combine. And all told, 11 former Cowboys will take part in Pro Day, which is going on right now at the indoor practice facility. It is open to the public. High school soccer, Cheyenne will host a one-day jamboree starting in about 10 minutes from now. This was originally scheduled for the last weekend, but it was just too much snow on the ground there. So Cheyenne Central, Cheyenne East, Cheyenne South, Laramie, Worland, and Rock Springs will be taking part. Varsity games start at the top of the hour, then at 1 this afternoon, then at 4:30 this afternoon. And a few former Casper American Legion baseball products have been doing well at the college level. Harrison Taubert has been playing at the University of Evansville and is hitting .286 with 2 extra-inning game-winning hits just this last week. Carter Young plays for Grand Canyon from the Western Athletic Conference and is a starting pitcher. He is 3-1 on the year with 38 strikeouts, and he struck out 11 in their game with Stephen F. Austin this season. And Corbin Kirk plays at Wayne State in Nebraska Division II school. He's a pitcher with 27 strikeouts in 20 innings of work.
Wow. Okay.
The guys are doing well.
Sometimes when I hear stories like that, I think, are they going to go beyond?
You never know.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a tough. Sports is a tough business.
Yeah. Even if you're good.
Yeah, that's right. Even if you're good, it's still a tough business.
Yeah. Because I know several people, for example, in the music industry, that are really good musicians and singers, and yet they've never really made it. Because it's not just about being good, is it?
Oh, no.
You got to know the business.
Yeah. Indeed.
Thank you, Frank. Coming up on some local business you got to take care of. Well, we got to take care of. You're good.
And then we're going to roll into news time. National, local update on the weather forecast. Wake Up Wyoming.